Ashley Adamson-Edwards 14.3. Session plan, session and program reviews. My program aims were for the upper body strength to increase their grip dynamic score by 3 after 3 weeks and 6 after 6 weeks. And then the cardiovascular endurance would be shown for a decrease in heart rate from 60 to 58 within 3 weeks and 56 at the end of the program, followed by speed being an improvement in the 35-meter sprint test from 5.16 seconds to 5.05 seconds within the first 3 weeks, and to 5 seconds over 6 weeks. And the success will be measured using tests at the start of every week. And the agility, improved their Illinois agility score from 15.8 seconds to 15 seconds over 6 weeks. However, free freaks, their targets will be to improve their result to 15.4. To justify these aims, all of the topic aims are specific to the client one's specific sport of basketball, and improving them will allow for an advantage in different game scenarios. For example, upper body strength will be measured using the grip dynamometer once every 2 weeks to provide recordings and data regarding their rate of progression. However, if there are signs of increase in score in the grip dynamometer, then there would be an indication that the client one's upper body strength had increased due to many upper body muscles being used in completing the tests. Consequently, during a game of basketball, client one would be able to generate more force behind perhaps a long-range pass in order to move the ball at a quicker rate to a teammate than a player who hasn't trained their upper body strength. Additionally, cardiovascular endurance is used heavily in basketball due to the long duration and constantly changing intensity levels of a basketball match. Therefore, training client one's cardiovascular endurance to a measure to a better standard is specific to the client because of the essential use it has during their competitive sport. This will then be measured using the client's heart rate monitor to measure hopeful decreases to indicate a large heart rate reserve to improve cardiovascular endurance. Whereas speed is also essential for client one sport of basketball, where, for example, trying to move it quickly from one end of the court to another when being counter-attacked. This will be measured by timing one of the sprints for the shuttle runs in an interval session, as it is the same as a 35-meter sprint. Finally, the agility is also a vital component of basketball when on the ball in order to move past players smoothly and quickly. This will be measured using the Illinois agility test once every 2 weeks. Moving on. The session aims, as previously mentioned before, upper body strength and agility are essential components of training programs due to the role they play in client one's competitive sport. The training being carried out correctly will be measured by watching and ensuring all techniques are carried out correctly from an observation from the instructor, to give them points and advice on what to do next. Following on from this is the equipment I'll be using for my session. And then this is the risk assessment that I carried out. So hazards such as tripping hazards, poor technique performing a skill, collisions and overextending a joint or ligament, and this is the controls to be in place in people at risk. Following on from this is the client PARQ, to summarise their health screening questionnaire, so that the program can be based more specifically around their lives. And then this is the average scores, and then following off. So now, for the session, the location will be inside the sports hall, and then you require 1 SIG for the sports hall area. There's also a need was stated in the equipment in the previous slide, and a complete risk assessment and a question before the session for any injuries the client has or any jewellery they're wearing will regard health and safety considerations. Following on from this, if there is for emergency procedures, if there is to be an injury which occurred to the client during the session, then I would take the necessary precaution of either adapting the fitness session to a light intensity drill which avoided frequent movement or use to the area which has been injured, or refer them to the GP in order to achieve an understanding of what's wrong with them in order to build a base a later session focused on reversibility. Also, this will help furthering the scenarios of the injury, as the client will be forced to work at a lower intensity which doesn't add more strain to the injury. Whereas if there was a fire alarm during the session, the client would have been prepared before the start of the session on where the nearest fire exits were, so that they can leave the session area as soon as possible. However, However, so that the exit is carried out safely and calmly, the instructor will be instructed to leave any equipment or personal items in the sports hall and calmly walk towards the exit as safe as possible. If someone was needed to be attended to, like the client after an injury, I would instruct them to stop performing the exercise and allow them to rearrange themselves into a comfortable position. Following on from this, the client will be offered reassurance and perhaps some water before ending the session, or calling for an ambulance depending on the severity of the incident. Whereas if it was realised that the session area is too small for the session to be carried out due to the drills like the SAQ ladders, then I would adapt the session by using an alternative drill like a small basketball dribbling drill. However, if the session area is too small and there are too many participants, then I would have to cancel the session and rearrange for another time, as poor spatial awareness could cause injury through collisions. And the issues arising from the risk assessment. So during the warm-up, I need to ensure that each stretch is performed correctly and efficiently so that the client avoids injury before the session has even begun. Also, the bicep curl drill is performed at high intensity, so I'll emphasize the coaching points applied to the drill. However, if there are any trip hazards in my allocated area for the session, then I will attempt to remove them depending on the severity of the hazards. Therefore, the session may have to be relocated if it was a long-lasting hazard which couldn't be removed at the time. Following on the warm-up, for the introduction, I will ask to check if the client has any current injuries which may affect the session, and if they are wearing any jewellery for them to take it off. Additionally, I will confidently ask the client if they are ready for the session and attempt to increase motivation. Also, I will behave professionally with a vocal voice to ensure that the client understands how to perform each technique. For the warm-up, they will dribble the basketball around the session area, and the SAQ ladder will be placed on an open space away from exercise equipment to prevent tripping hazards. However, I will organise the space for each of the activities away from each other started. This will in turn help prevent tripping or collision hazards with other pieces of equipment. However, if for some reason there isn't enough space for perhaps the SAQ ladder training drill, then the warm-up will use an alternative exercise which will be adapted efficiently. For the activities, I will give a visual demonstration explaining the coaching points throughout. The points will also be reinforced throughout the session. Along with this, the client's technique will be monitored to ensure efficiency and reduction in injury chances. However, the RPD scale will also be used in order to monitor intensity so the client isn't overloaded or underworked. Also, all the drills are either specific to the client or the sporting goals. For example, the bicep curl is used to improve the client's upper body strength and power. As a result of this, further measures have been taken in order to reach their goals. Also, the activities are progressive, with the more intense drill being at the end of the session with bicep curls. However, the drill of ASIC ladder training is also showing progression, with each set becoming more complex from set 1 to 3. During the cooldown, I'll ask if they are experiencing any pain, nausea, or anything of concern, which could be an injury or other health-related issue. Therefore, they can be referred to a local GP as soon as possible and consequently start their process of recovery and reversibility within the next few sessions, depending on the severity of the problem. Also, the client will be asked if they, for the session, worked them at the right intensity, and if the variation helped to eradicate tedium, and therefore later sessions can be adapted based on this feedback in order to make the program suited to the client as much as possible. Also, the basketball dribbling activity for the submaximal stage is specific to the client's main sport of basketball. This cooldown relates to the activity as it was used previously in the session but at a higher intensity. Therefore, including this in the cooldown, the client's heart rate can decrease due to the continuation of the skeletal muscle pump whilst using the safe methods where they are now familiar with. For the client aims of the session, so on the right hand side, for the session, I believe the client's agility was appropriately trained with the session, as the SAQ drills were given good feedback and the client seemed to enjoy them due to the recovery of their upper body muscles after kettlebell swings. However, my demonstration of the SAQ ladders could have been improved, and therefore the flow of the drill may have been compromised, whereas a clear demonstration of how to perform a bicycle curl was provided with clear coaching points. Additionally, the chair was used to help provide a clear demonstration for the squat exercise, which helped the client visualize the activity before for a greater understanding of what to do. Client feedback for positive, it was specific and it was efficient intensity and recovery. Also, for a negative, there is improvement needed for SAQ ladder demonstrations and therefore leading to a poor understanding. For the strengths of the session, for my strengths of the session, I felt that I delivered my voice in a clear voice in order to give clarity to my demonstrations. Therefore, the client will be able to understand how to carry out the technique better in order to perform it safely and efficiently. This would consequently reduce the chance of injury and also maximise how well the client can be trained. For example, I gave a clear voice during providing a demonstration for how to perform a bicep curl through one of the coaching points, like keeping up your upper arm still. As a result of this, the client was able to isolate their bicep brachia muscle so that it can be put under as much resistance as possible to be safely trained. Another strength of my session was that I was able to quickly change my session through innovation due to applying too much content in my session. Therefore, I nearly worked the client over the allocated work time. This may indicate that I planned poorly for my session. The fact that I was able to make the on-spot decision to change the amount of sets the client would complete, maintain the flow of the session without any pauses, which could have caused distractions. Following on from this, the first weakness of the session was the fact that I didn't provide a clear demonstration for the more complex drill of SAQ ladder runs before the client performed the activity. This is because I didn't include any coaching points into my demonstration and instead performed the method all in one and wrongly expected the client to understand how to perform the technique safely and efficiently. Consequently, the flow of the drill was badly affected and the client alternating their speed at which the technique was performed to ask questions on the movement was required next. Therefore, the client wasn't able to train their agility to their best ability as they weren't efficiently trained during the time allocated to them over one set. Additionally, the client may have become overwhelmed with the complexity of the drill, having not been clearly explained, and could have possibly demotivated them due to stress of not completing the activity properly. In the future, I'll provide coaching points to each specific technique as an alternation to the general points on posture that were given. Secondly, another area to improve regarding the delivery of my session was that at times I wasn't providing a sufficient amount of motivation in order to give the client the drive they may have needed in order to complete activities. For example, during the bicep curl, which drill, my main area of focus was on the client's technique and how I can instruct them on completing each rep to the best ability. However, I would often forget to give the client positive feedback on how well they are doing or how they are or how long they have of finishing the set. As a result of this, the client may have been demotivated due to the lack of motivation I was providing in terms of speech. In the future, I will deliver motivational quotes or possibly play some music whilst the client is carrying out intense drills, such as the bicep curls. For the program aims, which is on the left side. At the end of the program, the upper body strength was able to pass the target of 6 grip dynamicity readings due to the constant use of upper body training exercises like kettlebell swings and bicep curls with weights. Also, the client was able to decrease their cardiovascular endurance by the target set of 4 BPM to provide a greater heart rate reserve for the increasing varying intensity of a basketball match. However, client 1 wasn't able to meet their speed target, which may have been due to the speed related session being added in the second week and sometimes varied to recovery sessions of plyometrics. However, the client wasn't able to increase their 35-meter score. They were able to increase their 35-meter sprint score to 5.1 seconds. Finally, their agility was improved by 1 whole second to show a huge pass of the original target set. This may have been due to the client one's consistent use of agility throughout the week in exercise and also due to their speed hurdle and SAQ ladder drills implemented into the program. Finally, my first strength regarding the development of my program was the fact that I often included variation in each of the sessions. For example, the SAQ ladder training was constantly varied in the type of methods used to train the client's agility. As a result of this, the client was able to be motivated to complete the changing activities effectively as possible during the rest of the program. Additionally, another strength of my program was the progression which occurred during the program. For example, as the weeks progressed, exercise like the SAQ ladders progressed in their intensity through the principle of type. As a result of this, clients was forced to work their coordination and agility to a harder extent as the program progressed. Furthermore, as a result of this, the client was able to improve their agility and meet their target result of the Illinois agility test set out in the program. However, during my program for Client 1, their speed result wasn't able to improve to the extent which they aimed for at the start of the program. This could have been due to the lack of drills and exercise specifically allocated to the program to speed, and therefore there was a lack of attention paid to increase the client's speed.